Spring is upon us. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. But even with all the beauty around us, I can't help feeling that something very bad is about to happen. Because I am mankind, and destruction follows my every footstep. And I'm here today in the USWA. I'll be watching. Have a nice day.
For Dave Brown, this is Lance Russell. Corey Macklin is off for the day, and as a matter of fact, our newest colleague, Sid Vicious, said he'd been here a couple of weeks and he wanted the day off, Dave, didn't he?
I wasn't about to tell him no.
Oh, you got it. Sid won't be with us today. Corey's out today, but by golly, I'll tell you what, we have got Mankind the Mutilator right here with us today. You'll have the first chance to see him right here on USWA.
Jesse James.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales and special guests.
Somebody said something about being fired up. Somebody said something about Adam Dunn finding an archive opening from the USWA, and we were fired up. Somebody said something about Kansas City. How about them Chiefs? Somebody said something about it being the road to WrestleMania. Somebody said something about Vince is gone from the WWE. And all of us say, not just somebody, all of us say, it's time for Talking Memphis Wrestling. And want to slip in here right now from Arab, Alabama. He's right here. He had his camera turned on for the last 30 minutes. He is here. He is live. It's going to be me and Michael for at least the first hour. Maybe when Pat lands in Texas, he'll be able to come on and be with us for the final hour. Don't know that for sure, but we do have Michael St. John. Hey, how about them Chiefs?
You know, no surprise, but somebody's got to teach your fans how to do the chop, Randy. I mean, you know, my son coached at Florida State for 10 years, so you got to get in rhythm, and the whole crowd does it at the same time. They weren't doing it. Maybe they were drunk, but who knows? But congratulations. It was a great game as it ended up. It's a first half of a defensive battle, second half of just craziness, and it was a great game. I think people got their belly full of Taylor Swift, so I think the NFL's happy, so I think it all turned out. I had been in Vegas for Super Bowl Sunday before, and 3 times, in fact, when the Super Bowl wasn't there. But I talked to a friend of mine that did have tickets out there from Birmingham, and he was out there, and he said, he goes all the time, he said it was more than crazy. He said, you think about the craziest time you've ever seen in Vegas, and that was 10 times crazier. So that's sort of the vibe I got. And everybody I talked to, despite the fact they were paying $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for tickets, really, really enjoyed it. I don't have that kind of money, but if I were a billionaire, I probably would have enjoyed it as well.
I'm going to start from the very last comment from Team Hales. Adam, if you want to follow me, my buddy Greg White said, heard from San Francisco, did not know the overtime rules. I heard that too. Julie Yates, Easy Money, says hi to Michael. Then my buddy Julie. Alexander, he says, anyone here from the Northeast? Not sure about that.
That's because we're in the middle of a snowstorm.
Do what now?
Big snowstorm in the Northeast right now. A
Yes,
friend of
I
mine in
heard that.
Connecticut. Yes.
For sure.
She
I
came to
heard
agree with
Dan
me.
Patrick say that on the Dan Patrick show. Andrew Calvin Jr. says hello. PG says hello, or PJ says hello to all of us. Alexander says Memphis Wrestling has been one of my favorite territories outside of WWE, ECW, JCP, Puerto Rico, and world class. Okay, very good. I don't know if that's a compliment or you're saying we are about 15 places down. Frank says hello to me and says hello to you. So we love that. Michael Al Tuttle from Georgia in the house. Man, we got all kinds of people. It's Team Hales is really, really, really loaded. What did you think about that classic open from the USWA that we showed in 1996, the 1996 USWA Open? How about that enthusiasm of Lance?
Indeed, and I remember those. I remember that opening very, very well, and did a couple of shows during that time. I think that was right before Lance had his heart attack, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was right before that.
Jeff Hulk Hemp is in the house, and my buddy Bo James from, where is he from? Kingsport, Tennessee, the king of Kingsport. Again, a lot of people in. Go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, Bo, they got a huge card celebrating a big anniversary with the East Tennessee Wrestling Group. I think is it this weekend or next weekend? It's at Mount Carmel, I believe it is. And I was wondering if my good friend from D1 and all those folks in wrestling, Tom, is going to be there, because Tom just got into a Hall of Fame too, by the way. Pritchard, Tom Pritchard just got into the Hall of Fame.
And Tom was also affiliated big time with the NWA. Carlton says hello from Evansville Territory, Princeton, Indiana. Hello to you. You know, we have a packed show, just so much, so we're just going to be boom, boom, boom. But we're going to slow it down right now because we're going to talk about something sad, Michael, and we spend a few minutes on that. A year ago tomorrow, on February the 14th of 2023, Memphis Wrestling lost our founding father, lost the creator of the Memphis style, Jerry Jarrett. Seen there, a couple of other pictures. We have a picture of him with Tojo Yamamoto, his great tag team partner. Jerry, as you see, a very, very young Jerry Jarrett, was the protege of Tojo Yamamoto. And I've said this a million times, Eddie Marlin, without him, there'd be no Randy Hills in the wrestling business. And Eddie Marlin was Jerry Jarrett's father-in-law for many, many, many people, without a doubt. So the wrestling world missing Jerry Jarrett. Michael drove to Gallatin, Tennessee, and attended the service. And Michael, to be honest with you, had a much better relationship with Jerry Jarrett than I did. Certainly from a business standpoint and a creative standpoint, there's no doubt about it. Jerry Jarrett was the architect of Memphis Wrestling. There's been many other successful bookers, but the architect of the style of Memphis Wrestling is Jerry Jarrett, without a doubt at all. So we all miss Jerry Jarrett, and it was a big loss to our community, a big loss. Words about Jerry Jarrett.
Well, you know, Randy, I think in looking back on the life and career of Jerry Jarrett, of course, he was the son of a wonderful woman, Teeny, that his mother was in the wrestling business for a long, long time. So Jeff, that makes Jeff a third generation wrestler. But you know, one of the things that I guess sort of bother me a bit about Jerry's passing is I don't think Jerry got his propers or got the credit that he deserved until he passed. And I think when people realized that Jerry passed and that they started looking back on all he had done. I mean, from the time he was taking up tickets and selling popcorn back in the day to where he ended up. I don't think, when you look in the halls of the Hall of Fame of great wrestling promoters or great people in wrestling, and you got a top 10, if you got a top 10 that doesn't have Jerry Jarrett in it, I think you're sadly mistaken, because he may not have been the longest running world heavyweight champion. He may not have been the best technician in the world. He may not have even been the best promoter of the world, but he was the best promoter for his territory and knowing his business inside and out. And I'll guarantee you 99 times out of 100, the steps he took to draw money and to keep his territory on top were the right. I think his batting average was huge when it comes to that. And
let me interrupt you. I agree with you, but I say 80 from 89 on. I don't think at that point I didn't think so in any way. But up to 89, there was nobody better.
Well, and you look at 89 as a pivotal year, and that was the year, if I'm not mistaken, that he started getting into other businesses. And of course, he had bought USW or bought WCCW, and I'm not so sure that. And Jerry was somebody, he was a workaholic. He did so much on his own. He did a lot. He had a lot going on, and in times that I visited with him in the office, at times that we rode up and down the road, Jerry always had a bunch of irons in the fire. And I'm not so sure that at that point in time, it just didn't get, and being that Dallas was so far away from his reaches, I mean, when you look at the Memphis territory, it was an easy drive. It may have been a long drive, but it was an easy drive to all the towns. But all of a sudden you put Dallas in the mix, fastest way to get there is an airplane. And that, I think that sort of changed his world. And I think in doing so, it may have taken away from some of the things he did best when his hands, when his tentacles were touching all the buttons.
Rest in peace to Jerry Jarrett. Certainly been thinking about Deborah and Jeff and Jennifer and Jason and everybody in the family. Certainly our thoughts are with the Jerry family. Again, I want to say hello. It's out of control, the comments, which I love, but we're going to miss some. I appreciate everybody being with us on Talking Memphis Wrestling tonight. Michael St. John and Randy Hales. And we have Adam in the house, and he'll pop in from time to time, and he will fill us in with audio. He doesn't have a camera. And on the Alabama end, we have a additional, because Pat is not here today and Chris is not here today. So Michael, introduce the other hosts at the set in Arab.
Yes, tonight is my grandson, Joshua, who is 4.5 years old. He is just getting over some, he had what they said it was COVID. I'm not so sure if it was COVID or not, but in the meantime, this is the first time I've seen him in over a week. And he said he wanted to sit in tonight on the, she knocked over the drink, didn't she? Papa had some Coca-Cola and it got knocked over just a second ago. But anyway, Joshua's here. Joshua, say hello to everybody. They want to see you. So say hello.
Hello.
All right. So he's going to watch in the background.
All right. That is very, very good. Our second bit of news is talking about a wrestler that entered the USWA territory, and I'll tell that story. Of course, we're talking about, because he's been in the news lately and in not a good way. Billy Jack Haynes from Portland, Oregon, and that's a fairly recent picture of Billy Jack. Billy that was born, I'll go ahead and give you that information. He was born William Albert Haynes III, July the 10th, 1956. He's currently 70 years old. He came into the Memphis territory in 1995. There you see him with not a ball-headed Brandon Baxter, but a blonde-headed Brandon Baxter, as Brandon was in his corner and was a manager of Billy Jack. I'll be just totally honest, Billy Jack looked like $1 million. He had a very, very cup of coffee, or maybe even didn't make the first booking in the WWF. He also a run for Eddie Graham. Now, Jerry Jarrett in 95 was not involved in our territory at all. He wouldn't come into the towns. He happened to be in the office one day, and Billy Jack called looking for a job, and Jerry explained to him, said, well, you need to call Randy Hills. They got to talking. And Jerry Jarrett, Michael, always loved Eddie Graham, and Billy Jack talked about Billy Graham. And so Jerry Jarrett, who was not famous for giving somebody a money guarantee, but because of Eddie Graham and Billy Jack playing that card, Jerry Jarrett called me and said, Randy, write down so-and-so, so-and-so. Said, I got Billy Jack Haynes, and I knew him from the magazines. So he also told me that he was giving him $800 a week, which back in those days was a big guarantee. Billy was a strange guy. He was really strange. I never had one argument with him. You give him a finish, he'd do it. He wasn't the type of guy, hey, I don't like my creative. I don't like my finish. I don't like this. I don't like who I'm working with. Now, some of the talent thought he was strange. They didn't like working with him, or certainly didn't like traveling with him. He was a strange dude, and he worked in a stiff sort of way. And we'll have a video to show in a little bit about his USWA. And one shot on Brian Christopher is just so stiff. I don't think it was mean-spirited at all. Now, Billy Jack was married in Portland. Now, remember, he's 70 years old. He was married to 85-year-old Jeanette Beecraft, who had dementia. On February the 8th, Billy Jack Haynes was arrested following a 2-hour standoff with the police. She was found dead. Miss Beecraft was found dead in her home. Billy Jack Haynes remains in custody. So what? I don't. As Michael St. John has left, and he will be back. I'm sure he was trying to clean up the mess there as we were talking about Billy Jack Haynes. Al says Brandon looked like the bass guitarist for Cinderella or any hair metal band in that picture. Alexander says that $800 was good in 1995. It sure was, and a lot of people talking about Joshua. Adam found a very interesting video of Billy Jack Haynes while he was in the territory of the USWA, and we'll watch that right now. Here's Billy Jack Haynes.
At some of the highlights of Billy Jack's career here in the USWA.
He's got the trophy, Lance. Of too sexy Ryan Christopher. Oh, that's absolutely ridiculous. Uncalled for. Billy Jack Haynes holding a moment for Brian Christopher. Christopher wins it. Oh, boy. Pumps that thing again. Oh, just crushes all of that glass and everything. So get ready, tough guy.
I didn't see that fear in Brian Christopher's eye. Oh, no! Just when he turned his back to walk out of here, Haynes runs out, hammers him right down on the floor, and now he's got a board he got from over behind the curtain, grabs a hold of Christopher and rams him. Oh, man. Now, that's what you call jumping from behind. Christopher never had a chance. He was complaining about Brian getting him from behind. Billy Jack pounded him with that big board, slamming down on him. Oh, God. And he just keeps hammering Brian Christopher.
with Sid Vicious ready to get the 1, 2. Billy Jack Haynes hits the ring. It'll be a disqualification at that point, with Sid winning by disqualification. And there's the champ in the ring.
Billy Jack Haynes not waiting for the title match. He's after Sid Vicious now, who's the #1 contender. Disqualification occurred. Actually, I think probably when Baxter hit the ring, it should have been a disqualification.
You're right.
The referee. Sid Vicious the winner, but Billy Jack Haynes working him over right now. Here comes Doug. Well, Billy Jack Haynes, you see some of the things that he has done, and that's just some of them in the USWA. He does have an impressive record, but you see how he's done it, and he does hold the USWA heavyweight title at this moment.
You see where everybody here shuts up and lets me talk. Now let's get right to the point. I've been in the USWA for 2 months. I've been the USWA champion for 1 month. Everybody has feared Billy Jack Haynes in the USWA. Brian Christopher, as you just witnessed, I got this punk now out with the broken shoulder. Ain't you proud of me? Huh? Now, you just seen the video again. Sid Vicious, the biggest, toughest, and baddest man in the world of wrestling, feared Billy Jack Haynes. You just witnessed it. I took him down. I disrupted some vertebrae in his neck, and in the most important match of his life against Diesel for the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Championship, he couldn't finish it. He was hurt so bad, he was beaten because of Billy Jack Haynes. Now, I said before, let's talk about credentials. What does a man have to do to get to the top? Oh, am I spitting in your face? Huh? Oh, that's just tough luck. Then shut up, put the mic right here. Now, I told you I was a 10-year amateur boxer, fought the toughest pros in the world. I told you 15 years I was a professional wrestler. I've held every title. You can't even name the list of titles I've held. And I also told you I was born and raised in the street fighting. So what? Now the matches are signed this week, finally, with Jerry the King Lawler. And I have this question to ask, Lawler, because I know you're out there in this studio. What have you done? I have held every title. I am undefeated in the USWA, and now we will know what it takes to whip your butt all over the USWA. I'm not here to win friends and influence people. This is the toughest sport in the world, pro wrestling. And I'm not out to hurt anybody at all. I'm out to break their neck and take them out of here forever. And Lawler, you're going to follow the same pattern as Brian Christopher, Sid Vicious, and everybody else. Because that's what I come here for. Punk is for the unified title. And this week, I'm taking that home too. So everybody else can kiss my butt.
Boy, he's scared. And on that, we'll take a break.
Believable angle. And a believable mean wrestler. And I think that we have Michael St. John still, and there he is. Michael, did you hear the reporting on Billy Jack Haynes that on February the 8th he was arrested following a 2-hour standoff with his police? His 85-year-old wife with dementia, Jeanette Beecraft, was found dead in her home, and Billy Jack remains, of course, in police custody. So speak of, if you've heard that story, if you were around Billy Jack, and I don't think you were here at that particular time, and that video we showed, just how believable as hell he was. Your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. And I think he came out of that Portland territory, if I'm not mistaken, early on. He's a very believable character. I actually got to work with him one time, I think in Dallas. He did a one-shot for us at the Sportatorium down in, with the boys down there. And I want to say that he worked with Eric Embry But a unique individual. It's interesting about the stories. There were a lot of locker room stories that were going around about him about being strange, quote unquote. But I'm strange too. But the fact of the matter is, this whole thing right now with him now, the suspect in the murder of his wife, they're calling it a murder. There are a lot of people in America and around the world, and in some countries, it allows people to take their own life or to be or to have an assisted quote unquote suicide for dementia, or once they have gone into a state of that the outcome is inevitable. It's going to happen sooner or later. And I think it's a moral issue. I think it's something you have to deal with from that side of the fence. But there's been a lot of conjecture that this may be him, quote unquote, taking his wife out of her misery and her suffering, and may not be some, just an outright murder, so to speak.
One of the things that I just recently found out is that in Canada, you can do just what you're talking about. Canada is one of the places you can do that, Michael.
That's correct. They allow an assisted suicide up in Canada, and when somebody is terminal, and and again, you don't know the views or the faith or the morality of Billy Jack in this, especially this time in life. But as a worker and in wrestling back in the day, he was a tough customer.
I listened to Jim Cornette's podcast today, and I don't know when it came out, but he was covering this story. And Brian Last, his co-host, says that kind of like the Iron Sheik did, he getting paid to put out podcasts, and he's getting paid quite a bit of money. And he came out and said a lot of stuff. And if it's true, it's dumb to say that. You're just admitting guilt. But he said that he was a hitman and he killed people and he did this and did that. We just knew that Billy Jack was strange. But, Michael, I had no problem at all with him at all. And he was a hell of a wrestler, a hell of a heel for sure. And dementia is just because my mother had it, my grandmother had it, a real close personal friend of mine's mother has it now. It's just a sad, sad situation. But we wanted to, as we talk news up to date, we talk classic Memphis wrestling, but it was in the news, and I thought, Michael, it was something we needed to talk about today.
And of course, he had the Memphis connection. But the fact of the matter is a professional wrestler, he was a pretty tough character and he did his job well. So I don't think you can take that away from him. But my mother passed of dementia. My sister and I had to deal with the situation for 7 years after my dad passed. And she did not know me from Adam's house cat. She knew Joshua's grandmother. She knew my wife right up until the time she passed, but didn't know me and ended up not knowing my sister. And and to be honest with you, Randy, don't do that. But from everything I've heard, dementia affects the people on the outside of the people that have dementia, not the internal fact of dementia. So yeah, that plays into it too. But it's a sad story. It's a sad story. How many wrestlers have we encountered, Randy, just since we've been doing this show, that have gone off the rails for one reason or another? It seems to be more prominent now than it ever has been.
It's absolutely for sure, Adam, with a news article that he saw that's 2 days old, but it said that Billy Jack's currently in police custody at a local hospital for an unrelated medical condition. He will be booked into jail upon release. Charges will be discussed after booking. So again, that was 2 days old, so it might be outdated, might be a little outdated. Again, we wanted to bring you the Billy Jack, and once again, not even official charges are given. And again, later on, we will give some updates on the Vince McMahon situation. Remember, anything we talk about, these charges are alleged. And the legal comment back from Vince is his legally drafted opinion of what's going on. So basically, we're not going to spend a lot of time on that at all. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We got a whole lot of things. Michael likes it better when we do 2 or 3 segments. I like it better when we have 25 or 30 segments because I don't never know who's going to be on this show. And like last week, if I got to do the whole show by myself, I have to have preparation. So I throw away more prep than I use every week, I guarantee you. But right now, I want to bring the profile picture on here of Adam Dunn, and I want Adam to key up his microphone because he found something tremendous graphic-wise, and it fits in with Valentine's Day of 1996. So explain what you got, Michael, or explain what you got, Adam, and then we'll go through. And I'm going to have, as you put them up there, I'm going to have Michael read the card, and it's not on your notes. The rest of the cards are, but not February 14th. So, Adam, explain yourself.
Yeah, I just thought this was very interesting. It's from 1996, and I believe the calendar from 1996 actually lines up with the 2024 calendar. But taking a look, I don't know of a time that this ever happened when you had wrestling cards at the Coliseum for USWA wrestling 3 days apart. You had one on Valentine's Day and then one a few days later on the 17th. And just seeing these graphics and seeing these people on the USWA card was really interesting. And of course, I had Randy look it up and see. I was curious just because of the time period, if having them on the card for a Memphis show actually increased or did anything for the house numbers. And in reality, they actually didn't. But the show that was a WWF Tour de Force was the name of the tour that they were doing at the time. I believe that one drew about 7,000 people. Is that right, Randy?
That's right. And the Memphis went on an off night on a Wednesday with the WWF coming in on a Saturday. The Memphis show did 1,100, and we'll see that card for sure. But I thought a great job, Michael. I think you'll be impressed, and Adam will put up this graphic, and you can read the card.
Okay. Wrestling fans is coming Wednesday night at the Mid-South Coliseum. Big card of action on top. Motley Crue they're playing there?
Motley Crue was his wrestling name. His name was David Price, longtime guy that wrestled in the 80s of Memphis television, of course.
I remember the
David guy that he's wrestling.
The Spellbinder. That'll be a thing, so that'll open up things. Tomorrow night at the Mid-South Coliseum. See, I can do it like it's 1996. We're going to party like it's 1996.
All right. As the next match features Miss Texas, and we'll see that right now, Michael. Miss Texas in action.
And there's Jackie, Miss Texas, and she's going to be in action against Tasha.
Ladies match on the USWA, the Wednesday card, and then it got a little dangerous in this next match. A little dangerous and a little cowboyish, a little bit, with Dangerous Doug involved in the next match. Michael.
And then the third match on the card is a cowbell match, and I think that's a bull rope with the cowbell in the middle of it, and that would be Dirty Doug Gilbert against Tex Salinger. And Tex was a tough customer. I mean, he looked the part without a doubt.
Great guy as well. And the next match of the night was for the USWA Tag Team Championship titles. USWA Tag Team Championship titles was next on this card.
And that it went up there. Tammy Sitch was in that.
Yes, and we'll be back with that in a minute.
Okay, and the main event was a tag team title match, or a tag team match against with the Hart Foundation's Bret the Hitman Hart and the Undertaker taking on Jerry the King Lawler and Double J Jeff Jarrett. And you can see that Jeff was in his Double J persona there from the WWF back in those days. And, you know, I never really, and this is a personal comment, I like Jeff being Jeff more than I like Jeff being Double J. Let's put it that way.
I got you, and I think certainly that's a valid argument and a valid case for that. Other matches on this card, that's a great main event. We had Brian Christopher against Tommy Wildfire Rich. That was a interesting match on the Wednesday night Mid-South Coliseum card. And we also had, as we talked about earlier, for the USWA Tag Team Championship, don't know if we'll have a graphic of this or not, PG-13 against Tracy Smothers. And this is the Road Dogg, Brian Armstrong.
Jesse James. Yeah, Brian Armstrong back in the day before he got messed up. But boy, what a worker and what a family. You know, I really, looking at this card, you know, some of these guys, you have to think were at the prime of their career.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
time that these matches occurred, they were at the primes of their career.
Another thing, that wasn't all. They had a big battle royal that capped it all off. The Bluff City Brawl. Michael?
Anything goes battle royal, and I take it that all the participants that we just mentioned were in that battle royal without a doubt.
Big card. And were you aware at the time, because you were not around during that time period that I remember in 1996? Certainly I booked this card, but Lawler was the middle guy going to the Jim Ross, who was the talent relations type of thing. But we get those people, and that was a very good card. And we got paid money to put some WWF talent on the following TV. And as Adam said, it drew 7,500 people following Saturday afternoon at 3:30. And it doesn't matter the order, Adam, just go a match at a time and go ahead and hopefully, even though there's not a picture, any idea who the ringmaster is?
Well,
Michael?
Savio Vega, I remember watching Savio Vega, and I want to say the ringmaster, didn't he become the pimp guy that, oh gosh, I can't think of his name. Was that not the ringmaster prior to his, that was a pre-incarnation of, you know who I'm talking about, that had that brought the hose to the ring and all that stuff. And he had worked in Memphis.
That was the Godfather, not
Godfather,
the
yes.
Ringmaster. That was Godfather.
But wasn't the ringmaster not a pre Godfather scenario for him?
I didn't hear the question.
Was the ringmaster not a pre-scenario for the Godfather? What, didn't they try him out under another name before he became the Godfather?
No, you're talking about Papa Shango. The ringmaster was who the person was before he became Stone Cold. The ringmaster was Steve Austin.
Wow. Did not know that.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate all our great Team Hills members of saying that. But early in the night, that's great. And go ahead with the next match. This is interesting too.
This is Droz, before they let him use just one name, against Hunter Hearst Helmsley, of course, Triple H in that match. It was interesting that card was an afternoon card. That's 1:30 p.m. was bell time at the Mid-South Coliseum on that Saturday. So you got out of TV and then went straight to the Coliseum.
For sure. And again, we had several people at TV that day. On February the 17th was the TV that night, or that afternoon at 1:30. And how about this match, Michael?
Yokozuna. And what a boy. That was the biggest person I have ever been in the ring with. Well, I take that back. I was in the ring once with Andre, but Yokozuna was a huge man. And of course, part of the family of Roman Reigns and Sika and Alpha and all those guys. They are all akin, the wonderful Samoan people that have made professional wrestling really what it is today. But we lost Yokozuna at way too early of an age. Did a show in 1999 for the Legends of Wrestling. Yeah, I want to say it's 99, all the years. I mean, I was just saying this at supper a few minutes ago. I was telling Mia that over the past 20 years, all the years sort of run together. So I have to look and see on the pictures when the date was. But we had Yokozuna in a main event against Jake the Snake Roberts, and the world famous interview backstage with the tuxedo-clad Michael St. John holding up a very messed up Jake Roberts. But Yokozuna went through all of it and played it like a pro. Great man to work with.
Next of the night, and the pronunciation on this was wrong. The graphic is wrong. I will read one of the opponents, or not read it because it's wrong. It says the picture is Pat Tanaka, and it's not Pat Tanaka who Brian wrestled that afternoon. Tataka was the wrestler. So go ahead with that match.
Yeah, Brian Christopher and Tataka. And don't remember a lot about Tataka, to be honest with you, but do remember Brian Christopher without a doubt. Great talent.
Again, that was a basic WWF card using some Memphis wrestlers. And now, read this.
Okay, it's the Godwins against I can't say, it's Tommy Rich and Doug Gilbert, and
it was a 3-person tag. It was also the Godwins, the Body Adonis, and it was Rich and Gilbert. Chris Candido Tom Pritchard and Chris Candido was the Body Adonis.
Okay, and of course there's Sunny and her. I guess at this point, were they married? I would think they were in '96.
I think so for sure.
And then I joined. I started coming down to do the shows in March. So right after that card, I started coming down in '96 to do those shows. And I remember the reason I remember March of '96 is I had just bought a brand new Mitsubishi 3000 GT in the flag blue, the royal flag blue up there. And I could make it from St. Louis to Memphis in 3 hours if I don't get stopped by a cop.
Yes, and I hope you did not. And one of the Godwins was Tex Schlesinger, Dennis Knight. Next match on the card, 1:30 in the afternoon. Go ahead.
1, 2, 3 Kid and Razor Ramon. Now, was this the real Razor Ramon or was this the fake Razor Ramon? Because when I came into Memphis Wrestling, that was about the time that they brought the fake Diesel and the fake Razor Ramon in.
This is absolutely the one. This year, 96 was the real one. The 97 one was the fake Razor Ramon. But how about that for a match? Razor Ramon, 1, 2, 3 Kid, right off of a hot angle where the Kid upset Razor Ramon on television. That's a hell of a match at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Indeed. I would say, and okay, the next match is Shawn Michaels against Owen Hart. And I would think that would be a great match because both of those guys could work.
And the next match after that, how about this one?
The Undertaker with Paul Bearer against Goldust for the Intercontinental Championship. Yep. You know, and then the Unified World Heavyweight Championship match, Jeff Jarrett, Double J, against Ahmed Johnson. And the WWF World Tag Team or World Title match, Bret the Hitman Hart, who had the belt at the time, against Jerry the King Lawler.
And that match was in a cage, Michael.
Wow. You know, so I'm surprised that the money didn't, or the pop didn't, that it wasn't a bigger house. And I was surprised when you said that a few minutes ago. But now that I see that it was at 1:30 in the afternoon in February, which gets pretty cold, yes. And it's not a normal day for wrestling, or wasn't back then, so I could see maybe why such a great card didn't draw better.
Plus, Bret Hart and The Undertaker and Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett, they were all Wednesday night, just a few days before, they were at the Mid-South Coliseum for wrestling there. As Alexander said, Scott Hall and the 1, 2, 3 Kid before both left to WCW months later. Frank
Who
Seaton
was the
said they
1,
should
2,
have
3 kid?
do what now?
Who was the 1, 2, 3 kid?
Sean Waltman, X-Pac.
X-Pac. Okay. Gotcha.
Yes. Frank Seaton says they should have given Lawler the belt in Memphis at least for a few weeks, and I guarantee you. Remember, the WWF is a global company. That just wasn't going to happen. It took everything to get Vern Gagne to switch the AWA title. That just wasn't going to happen, but I would have been for that, and that would help the legacy, obviously, of Jerry Lawler big time. So your thoughts comparing just the whole deal that we had a TV on Saturday, we promoted the Wednesday show, and we saw the talent that was there included in the Undertaker and Bret Hart. Then we had TV on Saturday morning, and then on Saturday morning we promoted and got paid for it. Big money. Big money. It was Wednesday night when we ran the Memphis because Memphis was competing against WCW and Monday Night Raw, so we were experimenting on dates. And by that time, Evansville, Indiana was not running on Wednesday, so thus we had several Wednesday Mid-South Coliseum cards. They didn't draw at all, but just that's very interesting. We had USWA talent. I did not go to that show. I had Nashville that night. I went to TV. What's the referee's name again? Help me, Adam.
Frank Morrell?
No, it was the WWE. It was Earl Hebner from the WWE, and he actually refereed a match on television, as did the Bobby Donnas and several other people on that card. And then after television, me and Jeff and Wolfie went out to eat with Earl Hebner, and he was a funny dude. And then Jeff went ahead and went to the Coliseum, and Wolfie, I think Wolfie probably, unless he was on that Memphis card, and I don't think he was, he went back with me to Nashville. But just a very interesting, very interesting concept and a very great card. And I'm glad, Adam, and it took a lot of work to upload those graphics, but that is impressive, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because along that period of time, first of all, you talk about Earl Hebner. He was a funny guy, but his twin brother was sort of quiet. So they were like a yin and yang. But anyway, had drinks with him at a Westchester hotel in Los Angeles by the airport one night when they were running the Anaheim with Jeff Jarrett and Road Dogg. They rode back with me from the pond at Anaheim back to the airport. But anyway, not to get off course, but we were going through a period of time, at least as I understood it when I came back and started doing that, some of the WWE names would draw in Memphis, but there was also a little bit of a rub with the Memphis fans that they didn't shine to the WWE yet or the WWF. They wanted their hometown guys, and they still supported the Jerry Jarretts and the Jerry Lawlers and the hometown, the Bill Dundees and the hometown people, their hometown folks more so or as much as the WWE. And of course, the WWE would come in and they'd run the big house and they'd do a lot of flash and all, but they used to paper the houses. I remember in 97 coming here when we started Fun 92.7, and the WWE ran Birmingham, and we'd only been on the air with the format a couple of months, and they gave us 500 tickets to give away. Just in North Alabama, it's an hour drive from here to Birmingham. How in the heck do even big stations give away 500 tickets to a wrestling show? It was tough. It was really tough. But they didn't. To me, back then the WWF hadn't yet gotten their claws entrenched in Memphis, and I think Memphis was the last bastion for the WWF to get popular in, if I'm not mistaken.
And when it happened was the birth of The Rock and Stone Cold and Triple H and that crew and DX for sure. I want to answer Alexander's question. He said, did the partnership with the WWF hurt Memphis in the long run? I don't think so. The partnership, I think what hurt Memphis more than anything else is the Monday Night Wars with Nitro and Raw, and that's free television and main event quality pay-per-view main events every Monday. The business changed. That's what hurt us. For a long time, especially with Power Pro, the relationship, the financial relationship we had, being paid to not only use their, certainly we had to pay their main event type of wrestlers, but they bring in, when we started with Power Pro with developmental. So in the long run, that relationship with the WWF kept us in business. Do you think that's fair to say? And I know I dealt with the money end more than you did, but you've been around, you know some stuff.
Oh,
Don't you agree with me?
Absolutely, Randy. I totally agree, and I think it also helped on the north side of the territory in Louisville. I think the with the Ohio Valley folks and the WWF transposing into the WWE at that time with that lawsuit with the World Wildlife Federation. I think without a doubt that kept those territories afloat a little bit longer than they would have been kept afloat. But the unfortunate or the fortunate, depending on how you look at it, the death of the territories was going to come sooner or later. And I think when Vince came in and like a bulldog and started robbing each territory of their big stars. I mean, the only big stars I think nationwide he didn't get was the boys with Vern, the boys in Memphis, and Bill Watts. I mean, everybody else ended up somehow, some way going to work for the WWE.
Well, you know, AWA, their biggest star was Hulk Hogan. He left and he went to Vince. The biggest star for Bill Watts was who? The Junkyard Dog. Where did he go? He left and he went to the WWF. And then Jim Crockett Promotions, Roddy Piper, Ricky Steamboat, they all left. So people from WCW left. It just changed everything. Now, I have a question to you so I'll know where to go next in the show and who to do what. Did you print out notes? Okay, go to, first of all, Adam, if you would call up graphic number 2567. This is Birmingham, and I want you to read the card, and I want you to really, and it'll be on the actual card will be, and it's an interesting opening match, but the card will start on page 3, and mine's numbers, yours not. But this is Birmingham on February the 7th, 72. So the card is up on no, that is, does that say Chattanooga?
No, it's Birmingham.
Oh, that's Birmingham.
Is that Chattanooga?
No, that's Birmingham.
Yeah, channel 42 on the bottom. Yeah, that's Birmingham. City Auditorium, Birmingham, Alabama. At 8:30 was the bell time because they were on daylight savings time. Now, is this you said this was the 2nd of the 7th of February. Birmingham would not have been on daylight savings time then. So I'm wondering if this date is wrong.
That is wrong. It's an 8:30 show. The Chattanooga show that we'll talk about later. That is an afternoon show. This Birmingham card, as we see on the ad, it says 8:30 at night, Michael.
It says 8:30 daylight savings time. And Birmingham nobody would have been on daylight savings time in February. So, and 8:30, Birmingham cards always started at 7:30, and I guess they moved them to 8:30 and during the summer months. But I don't think this the date on this card and the graphic we're showing is the same. The card's the same, but I think the graphic I don't think the date.
You think the date's wrong?
I think the date's wrong. Yes, sir.
Matt Memories is a great place to get old cards. Ed Harrison does a fantastic job. I could have, I'm pretty sure, because he does a day off and goes back and does a great job. I could have made a mistake here, but let's go ahead and say to everybody, we don't know when the hell this was, people, but we're going to read you this card anyway to show you the cards in the other Monday night town. Monday night town, every Monday night, Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. And Michael will tell you a little bit. was it not called? It says City Auditorium.
Right.
Was it not
This was
also
before
called
they
the Boutwell Auditorium?
It was changed. The name was changed to honor former Birmingham Mayor Albert Boutwell. When I was in Birmingham in 74, I believe it was when the City Auditorium became the Boutwell Auditorium. History's biggest grudge tag battle you can't afford to miss, demanded by Buddy and Robert Fuller, seconded by Bearcat Brown. They'll take on Don and Al Green with their manager, Sir Clements, who I think is one of the most underrated managers to ever appear in the South. He was outstanding. Norvell Austin posted $1,000.
Now let me stop you, Michael. You might not be able to read it. You may need to check the notes that it's on there. Did you say the opponents of Don and Al Green? Because it's very,
Buddy
very,
and Robert
very
Fuller. Buddy and Robert Fuller, seconded by Bearcat Brown. They had Bearcat Brown in the corner.
Okay, the rest of the card.
Okay. Norvell Austin posted $1,000 appearance bond, or he'll be suspended from all NWA states and fined. It's a chain match. Both men will be chained together. Norvell Austin against Bearcat Brown. And that was a unique match for Birmingham in the 70s, especially the early dates of the 70s, because these are two black athletes in the ring against each other. One being the heel, and I would say the heel obviously would be Norvell Austin against Bearcat Brown. A big tag battle, the interns, with manager Dr. Ken Ramey taking on Kevin Sullivan and Dennis Hall. And you talk about Kevin Sullivan could work back with blindfolded, and Dennis Hall was one of the best technicians that ever came down the pike, trained a lot of wrestlers, including Bearcat Brown. So that was a great match. Now listen to this tag battle. The
opening match of the night. This is unbelievable.
And look at these names. A big tag battle to start off the night. Jerry Lawler, before he was Jerry the King Lawler, and Jim White, and the ex-Green Shadow, who was Pat Malone, versus Eddie Marlin and Roy Lee Welch. Now, I'm wondering, was Pat Malone, the Green Shadow, in their corner and not in the match? It doesn't say that, but that's what I'm assuming it is. But Pat Malone, who was also a referee in the Birmingham and Huntsville area, Gadsden and Tuscaloosa and Montgomery back in those days, the Green Shadow was in the corner with Lawler and Jim White in their match against Eddie Marlin and Roy Lee Welch. I'm wondering if Sam Bass may have had another appearance, maybe was in Memphis that night.
Might have been, for sure, and also, so we're at a dilemma on what year this is now. I would guess 72, because that's when Lawler and White started teaming together. And remember, Sam was not put with them immediately when they started. Their first manager in Memphis, just last 2 or 3 weeks, was the Bounty Hunters manager, Jimmy Kent.
Jimmy Kent, yeah. Good point, Randy. Very good point.
By
So
the way,
that's Birmingham in 72 sometime. I think that's a summer card, but that's my guess. If you ask me, that's a July, August card.
I think you're right about that. By the way, as I'm missing people all the time that has commented for sure on here, and one of my best friends, if not my best friend, and it is my best friend, Randy West, was watching earlier in the show, and I missed him. Andrew Calvin Jr. is in the house, Mike and Derek and Greg and Myra, and so many people watching on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and we appreciate that for sure. Absolutely appreciate that, everybody. The next card will go to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Adam, the graphic number is 2561. 2561. The date I have on this is February the 11th, 1973. Again, it's on the notes, even though at first it said 72, but it says 2/11/73. That's the accurate thing. On the notes, I start with the first match and go to the main event, and on the ad. So whichever way you want to do it, Michael.
All right, we'll start from the bottom and go up because the important part about this, Randy, and really This is a big breaking news story about this card. There was a 50 cent per ticket advance in prices. 50 cents per ticket advance in prices.
Oh, my goodness. They're trying to break us, Michael.
Leon Chandler against Don Anderson opened up the card. Jerry the King Lawler and Jim White with manager Sam Bass took on Eddie Marlin and Tommy Gilbert. You know, there's a tag team. We talk often about Eddie and we've talked about Tommy, but when they worked together, Randy, they were a really fluid tag team. They worked almost like if they were brothers and had lived their whole life together. I remember watching those guys. They were good.
Oh, they were a great time. And Frank says, how long did Lawler work the Birmingham territory? And we're going to do a sidebar. I have the Memphis viewpoint. Michael has the Chattanooga/Birmingham viewpoint as well. It was one big territory. It was the Gulas-Welch territory back in 1973, had two ends. One end was called the Birmingham end. Explain to them what the Birmingham was, because they know Memphis, Louisville, Evansville was Jonesboro and Tupelo and spot shows, and Lexington, Kentucky was the Memphis end. Go ahead and tell them the Nashville end.
Well, the Nashville end was Nashville, Birmingham, Huntsville, and Chattanooga. And the TVs were run in each town. And it was on Channel 2 in Nashville. It was on Channel 12 with Harry Thornton in Chattanooga. Grady Reeves at 4 o'clock on WHNT Channel 19 in Huntsville. And late night, 10 o'clock at night, and sometimes 10:30 if they had a sporting event that would run over, was at Channel 42 in Birmingham, high atop Red Mountain with your friend and mine, Sterling Brewer. And they ran off those, and many a show, and I've seen it. I saw it with my own eyes because, like I've explained many times, we had community antenna and we got all those stations here in Huntsville. But I could watch the Nashville show at 2. I could watch the Chattanooga show at 5 and watch the Birmingham show at 10 or 10:30, and would see several of the wrestlers that were on Nashville in the morning or at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They would be in Chattanooga for the 5 o'clock show, and then they'd be back on Birmingham that night. So, I mean, there was and what gave it away one night to me was Fargo. Jackie Fargo had gotten juice in Chattanooga in a wild melee, and he shows up in Birmingham and doesn't have a patch or a scar or anything. And it was like, wait a minute, he just got waylaid in Chattanooga. What happened here? But that was how the southern end of the territory ran, Randy. But this was a big card for Chattanooga at the City Auditorium in Chattanooga. And besides Lawler and White and Sam Bass against Tommy Marlin or Tommy Gilbert and Eddie Marlin, the Fabulous Kangaroos with George Cannon as their manager were on that card against Sunni Warcloud and Ben Justice. Ben did a lot of opening matches for Nick when I was working with Nick in 77. It was sort of a smaller guy, but very athletic. Cowboy Frankie Lane. And
this was the midget wrestler, Cowboy Lane.
Oh, this says Cowboy Land, okay. And Billy the Kid, midget man's match against Johnny Reb and Farmer Pete. I don't know a lot about any of those folks. Big tag match with Lorenzo Parente and Bobby Hart with manager Don Duffy. The only Don Duffy I'll ever remember was a boxing referee against Dennis Hall and Bearcat Brown. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Lorenzo Parente and Bobby Hart were under a mask. And were they the original Infernos or the Blue Inferno? Not the Blue Infernos.
Blue Infernos, I think so. I think you're right. But remember, that was your end, not my end.
Yeah, the Blue Infernos, I think, were Lorenzo Parente and Bobby Hart. They may have been Mephisto and Dante, but folks out there can remember probably better than I can. But then the main event was a hospital elimination tag battle. A man must be busted open before he is eliminated. And on one side, on one side of the fence, or one side of the ring, rather, it was Jackie Fargo, Jerry Jarrett, and Tojo Yamamoto against the Bounty Hunters, Nick Kovac and his brother with manager Jimmy Kent. So I guess Jimmy Kent, Nick put him in different places, I guess, at different times.
We interrupt the show right now, Michael, with some breaking news. I just received, and he said hello to us a few minutes ago. Speaking of Chattanooga, Tennessee, he's from that area. The legendary great wrestler Pat Rose sent me a very disturbing text. His son, as we have talked about, and he did this show a time or two, Camden, is training to be a wrestler. Recently, he was attacked as he was at a wrestling event, and he was, of course, a great country music singer, Camden. He was attacked singing the national anthem at a wrestling show by a wrestler, and I will show you as he's being interviewed right now. I'm going to have to unplug this phone so it will work. Do you see that? He comes from tough stock, and he's busted open, and he has a bandage on him. I guarantee you, I don't care if it takes Pat Rose to make a retirement. They're not going to put up with that stuff, especially somebody coming in and interrupting a talented future star in country music. This Ukrainian wrestler, assassin, or whatever they call him, to attack Pat Rose. Don't you agree, Michael? He will pay for that.
Well, I'm sorry, but to me, one of the sacred trust of our nation is the national anthem, and for anybody to interrupt the national anthem for any reason is despicable. So
I wanted to get that on there. So as you continue telling us that Chattanooga card from 1973.
Well, you had breaking news out of Chattanooga, and we're talking about the card. That's amazing. But the main event, again, was the hospital elimination tag battle with a man must be busted open to be eliminated from the match. Jackie Fargo, Tojo Yamamoto, and Jerry Jarrett against the Bounty Hunters, Nick Kovac, and for some reason his brother's name escapes me, and manager Jim Kent. And I'd made the comment that I guess Nick was using Jimmy Kent as a manager around his heel tag teams during that time.
And the Bounty Hunters were Jerry and David Novak.
Jerry and David. Okay, I'm sorry. Jerry and David Novak. I remember working with him. I just couldn't remember their first names.
Now, on top, read that, because obviously we've heard and seen on many, many cards. And on the Memphis end, what's on the Chattanooga card, I've never seen. I've never seen it listed like that. It's on top. It's 17
men. It says seven big matches, including a 17-man Wrestle Royal. Lynn Rossi will be at ringside in his wheelchair as a special guest of honor. So this was obviously after Lynn's tragic car wreck. Yeah, that was terrible. That cost him his career.
So did Nick, because Jerry Jarrett always called it a battle royal, have you seen this before? Wrestle Royal.
Yeah, we called it that, and when I started with Nick, that's what he was calling him. They call him a Wrestle Royal, and instead of a Battle Royal. Also, I think this was during the time, looking at that card, and I'm almost positive of this, during that time, Nick was, and I think Lynn Rossi was booking at that time.
Yes, I'm in that era. I guarantee you're absolutely right. Just a very interesting card. And let's see that graphic one more time, if we can put that graphic up there from Chattanooga one more time. So how unusual, because, originally I think it's been all over the place. I know it was a Thursday night town. It was a Saturday night town. But this was, I'm assuming, on a Sunday, and this was a 3 p.m. start time. So thoughts on that?
Okay, well, remember, Chattanooga was the only town in the Nick territory, in the Gulas Welch territory, that was on the Eastern time zone. on this end. Now, of course, up on the Memphis end, Louisville was in the Eastern time zone.
And Lexington.
In Lexington. So you look at this, and 3 o'clock in Chattanooga is a 2 o'clock time in Nashville. So, and knowing Nick Goulas, and I'm guarantee you he was at this card, he would go to church at the Greek Orthodox Church that he financed over on Franklin Road, just a few blocks from his house. He would go to his church service at 10 o'clock. He would leave there at 11 when the service was over, and he would drive that Lincoln down the center aisle or the center stripe of I-24 as far as it would go. And then at 24, you got off at Mount Eagle because it wasn't finished on the backside of the mountain. And you'd have to get back on 41 and go down the mountain. And then you get at the bottom of the mountain, you get back on, I think it's South Pittsburgh. It became a freeway again into Chattanooga. But I guarantee you he'd make it to Chattanooga in a couple of hours because he'd do 100 right down that middle line. And he would be there in time for this match.
That is great. We got 2 more cards before we talk about several other subjects. And I got a great video to show you. My hometown, the ring announcer of this card, and it's very, very interesting, folks. Different time, as Adam has up there, graphic 2556. This is Jonesboro, Arkansas. By this time, I would have been a junior in high school, This is Jonesboro at the American Legion Arena on Washington Street. The opening match, Big Al Green against Wayne Petty, Jerry Barber against Danny Davis in his rookie year in professional wrestling, and Chris Cote and Don Fargo with Al Green. We've seen that. The booking back then, you had managers that could wrestle. They would do the opening match, then they would manage in the main event. It was Cote and Fargo against Bill Dundee and Tommy Gilbert, the main event. And somebody asked if that was Dutch, and no, it was not. Wayne Petty was just a local Memphis type of wrestler. Dutch Mantell's real name was Wayne Cowan. So that is the situation like that, about that. And so interesting card in Jonesboro. It's 1979, Adam. Michael.
Well, just real quick on this, it seems like Jonesboro, and this was running on a Saturday after Memphis TV. So the boys that would hang on and head up to Jonesboro, depending on how, what kind of names and stars were on that card at the TV, Jonesboro got some pretty big names, some money drawing names for those cards in Jonesboro.
And, the building was considered a sellout. This is the old American Legion, about 800 people, but I've seen 1,000 people in that building. I've seen 1,000 in there, and that's very interesting. And another one of my jobs, Michael, was that Eddie would call me on Wednesdays or Thursdays and give me the card, and I would write it out or type it out at the time and would take it to the Jonesboro Sun and play. I thought I was a big shot, Michael. Then in later years, when it was part of my full-time job doing advertising, I hated doing it. I hated calling the
Did you ever have to put out cards at the art cards at the different businesses and cafes and all around town?
I've done it all over the Mid-South, and I've done it in Kentucky and Indiana. Yeah, I've done that many, many, many times. We want to do one last card real quick. It's graphic 2556. I had Pat scheduled to read this card, Columbus, Georgia, because certainly I thought he would be interested in reading this card. He was a fan of Georgia Championship Wrestling. But the interesting thing about this, Michael, before I have you read the card, is that Robert Fuller was the booker. Robert Fuller, all of a sudden, this is from February the 11th, 1981, Robert Fuller was hired because he had a hell of a run in Knoxville and in Gulf Coast area. Not a good run in Memphis, in 79, but he has had success. He did not have success in Georgia, and we'll have you read this card right now.
Well, remember the Columbus, Georgia territory, or the Columbus, Georgia area was run and owned and controlled by the Oates brothers. Jerry and Ted Oates did that for the Atlanta office. So
I didn't know that, Michael.
That's true.
That's great.
And
I appreciate that.
all during the run of WCW before they ever went on Channel 17, the Oates brothers, they were the ones that booked Columbus. And that's why you'd see them on Georgia Championship Wrestling featured a lot, even if they got beat, because they'd go back to their hometown of Columbus and run the cards there. But this was on February 11th of 1981. And the opening match, Mr. Wrestling number 2, Johnny Walker took on Kevin Sullivan.
What an opening match.
Boy, you talk about two people that could work there. Those guys could do 2 hours. I mean, they were incredible workers, both of them. The Georgia Championship was on the line. The Mongolian Stomper was in action, but I do not have who he is taking on. I guess it's
Tony Atlas.
There it is on the card on the screen. Tony Atlas was the opponent for the Mongolian Stomper. Now, the Mongolian Stomper, he was our guy. He was the same guy, right?
Yeah, Archie Goldie.
Archie. Yeah. Okay, I'm just making sure. And then the loser leave town match, and I think this was about the time that the Freebirds were going to Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. But the fabulous Freebirds, Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts were representing the Freebirds in this particular match, taking on Robert Fuller and Plowboy Frazier. So I guess Plowboy Frazier made the trip from North Mississippi over to Columbus, Georgia to be in this one. And then the main event was a challenge match. And I don't know the exact stipulations on this, but it was Pretty Boy Michael Hayes, Freebird Michael Hayes, against who became the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
What do you think of that card?
Good card. Ted DiBiase, I didn't, until I met him years ago in 97, I guess it was, I never realized he was from Memphis, or not Memphis, but from Mississippi. Ted grew up in, I think, Greenwood or Greenville, Mississippi. And he had Southern roots, but he's gone on in his life after wrestling. He's made more money, I think, when his life in wrestling. But it says a Fred Ward promotion sanctioned by the NWA, the Sports Arena in Columbus, Georgia. And again, the Oates brothers were the ones that ran that town.
Yes, that's a lot of time that happened, Ronnie. Ronnie's saying, wasn't that a Fred Ward town? Again, a lot of times wrestlers like Ron Whitey Caldwell and Dunright did one of the Kingsport, Tennessee, had them, but they couldn't say they were top heels, so they wasn't going to say they were. And Whitey Caldwell was the top babyface, so you wasn't going to say that. Same thing here. Fred Ward was basically the front guy, and they own the town. Just a very, very interesting card. So,
well, you look at Memphis, and make a great point, Mary. You make a great point, Randy. You look at Memphis. How long was it before anybody, kayfabe, how long was it before anybody even realized that Jerry Lawler had skins in the Memphis territory? I mean, it was a long time before that ever came out.
Wasn't it after we were done? I think it was after we were done.
May have been.
A few people might have known, but
right.
The general public didn't know. We're going to take just a little switcheroo and change things, because a lot in Nick's towns and the Jarrett towns, a lot of weekly towns, and a lot of wrestling fans were a lot of characters. I'm going to take 9 minutes out to show a video right now. This is just very interesting. I want everybody here to watch this closely. It's on the clip side, Adam, and this comes from, and I'll ask Michael if he remembers, it was from a show on Sunday nights called on national television on a network called Prime Time Sunday with Tom Snyder. What do you know about that?
Tom Snyder was a great late night. In fact, he was the precursor on Nightline back in the day, and he was an quote unquote an investigative journalist. But Tom would actually have interesting things, and he wasn't someone that was out for the sensationalism. He was out to show you, sort of behind the curtain or behind the scenes. And I remember this, and in fact, I remember this episode because if I'm not mistaken, he went into Jonesboro and did a whole segment about Jonesboro.
They did a two-piece thing, one in Memphis and one in Memphis and one in Jonesboro. And Adam asking, wasn't he and Tom Snyder in David Letterman's slot before Letterman on NBC? Is that correct?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. But it was a Nightline type. I don't know if it was named Nightline, but it was a Nightline type program. Now,
I'll have comments here. This was in my hometown. This is the original building that Buddy Wayne promoted and a lot of people before that. It's just a sensational piece of video from a lot of people felt this was an expose. I hadn't watched it in a long time, but I know there's some recognizable faces from my past, from the fans and the ring, the guy that rang the bell and that sort of thing. This is from 1979 from Primetime Sunday with Tom Snyder. And we'll watch that video right now on Talking Memphis Wrestling live as live can be.
The Saturday night stop on the tour is the American Legion Hall in Jonesboro, Arkansas. 52 weeks a year, the man they love to hate is Jerry the King Lawler.
Shut up, you redneck hillbilly. Sit down out there.
I guess the worst thing that I've heard, there was a wrestler in Florida that after the matches, the fans ran over him in the car, and I guess we shouldn't be laughing because it killed him, And so that's the only time I've ever really heard of anything really bad.
Jerry Lawler is a star, but it's taken him 8 years of one-night stands.
A lot of people would consider it pretty hectic. I wrestle fairly often, usually about 4 to 5 times a week. But this is because I want to, I enjoy it. There have been guys that want to wrestle once a week. I myself, I feel like I don't want to wrestle forever, and so I'm trying to do what I can now so that I won't have to wrestle for a long time. That's the only thing that I really dislike about this profession, is that it is so demanding time-wise. You usually, after the matches at night, there's a pretty good trip back home.
Number 2, 1,000 pesos. Number 10. Number 2.
I have several wrestlers that earn in excess of $100,000 a year, and I have a whole lot that earn $20,000 a year. It depends on the box office. How many tickets the wrestler sells. And if he's a winner and he sells a lot of tickets, he makes a lot of money. And if I get enough of the wrestlers that are winners and sell a lot of tickets, then I make a lot of money.
Hey, with cameras in the air, body slams in.
One, give me the bad guys in the corner also. The action and the bad guys.
On Saturday mornings in Memphis, the studios of WMC-TV become a wrestling arena. The good guys dress in the news set. The bad guys dress in the men's room. The promoter does not allow good guys and bad guys to be seen together outside the ring ever.
Hold 2, 2. Hold 1, 1.
The 90 minutes of live wrestling is taped and used on stations in the other 7 towns on the circuit. The television show doesn't make money for the wrestlers. Money is made at the box office. But it's television that gets the fans to go to the matches.
It's going to be a great night down there Monday night. It's going to be lovely. I can hardly wait for it. Do you realize that? Let me say something to you, Bill Dundee, you little runt. You little half-pint shrimp. You think you're going to stand behind Jimmy Valiant, let him fight your battles for you, and then you won't have to face me. Is that what you think? Well, let me tell you something. You got another thing coming, because I'm going to go through Handsome Jimmy just like X-Lax through a widow woman. I'm going to get to you, Dundee, one way or the other, because I'm going to beat you, punk.
Don't come to fight, Lawler. You better come to be in a war, brother, because the fighting's over. It's going to be a war. Jerry Lawler, you belong to me. Thank you, later.
Okay, the superstar, Bill Dundee. Action coming up Monday.
Much of the action may make you wonder whether wrestling has any rules at all. There are 2 important ones. Make the punches look as good as you can. And try not to injure your opponent, because he has to wrestle the next night.
The more violent the match is, and if you get busted in the eye or I don't know, they just seem to enjoy it more if it's more violent. They won't come to see a wrestling match just where 2 guys go out and wrestle and stay by the rules. So I think the violence has a lot to do with it, but the whole world's changing, I think.
It's what the people want. It's just something that's inside everybody. They like violence. They like to see it.
The more violent they get, the better I like it.
I don't like to see them wrestle. I like to see them fight. I just like I guess the hitting in the blood.
Bloody cuts on the forehead are a tradition in wrestling. The small scars can be covered by combing the hair forward. But often, as on this night in Memphis, real blood is not enough. So hidden capsules of red paint are used, and somehow the fake blood makes it real.
I like the rough, tough stuff. If I don't see no blood, it's not thrill.
Someone says catch it when they put it in the face, but it's not. That's blood.
There's a vast segment of our society that recognize and appreciate wrestling and all that it does for them. I think that's the reason it's lasted and endured. It's endured the wrath of the media. It's endured everything. And it's alive and well, and you can see by our fans and turnout.
We live it. Let's go home, Thomas.
That fake stuff, man. Good show, though, ain't it? Good show, ain't it? Fake, though. Tell you what, that's a good show, bro. Oh, put up on there, then. Yeah, stuff's fake. Good show, though, ain't it?
Years ago, I worked at a television station that carried a live wrestling show, and I once asked one of the wrestlers, what hurts the most in the ring? And he said, when the fans out there start throwing used flashlight batteries at us. Primetime Sunday continues from New York right after these words from our sponsors.
I have a statement about that, and this caused a lot of controversy. As Michael said earlier, that a lot of times Tom Snyder didn't go the sensationalist type of thing, and the line the producers gave Jerry Jarrett and Lawler and Dundee and everybody involved on that thing is that they would treat it like a sport, because even back then you didn't smarten up the camera people. There was false things said there, and I think you know it. I can tell you, as somebody that's been in a wrestling dressing room my whole life, I've never, ever in my life seen a blood capsule. I've never in my life seen a blood capsule, and Michael St. John can tell you. So this got a lot of heat. It got heat with other promotions because it was done in Memphis, and Jerry Jarrett felt that he lied to and that sort of thing. Now, my buddy Frank Seaton from Jonesboro, and by the way, Al, it is on YouTube, Primetime Sunday Night with Tom Snyder. It's a two-part. I'll show, this was part number 2. I'll show part number 1 next week. A lot of characters in that video. Frank Seaton, my friend, he was there that night. The cameras were there, and Lawler wrestled Hector Guerrero. The bell ringer guy's name was W.T. Shelton. If you notice, Michael, and you can tell me how it was in Alabama, there was no fences around the ring. There was no ropes around the ring. And the ladies, one of the ladies' name was Alma Jones. The other one was Evan Hale, not Hales. It's Hale. And they were there. The lady from Memphis they showed, her name was Mary. And S.K. Lee asked me to do a series, and we will address this again next week about the regular fans. And so Michael, I'm sure, can tell you in his area, regular fans. Evelyn and Alma would go out in the parking lot in intermission and drink their whiskey, and they were pretty loose when they showed up, and they would cuss, probably the first cuss word I ever heard in my life as a kid going to the matches. And they would bang, and the security would let them do it. They would bang on the ring and say, he's pulling hair, he has a chain, the manager tripped the thing, whatever. It's the wrestling I grew up on. Now, we can pull and knock that piece. And in 1979, Michael, you'll agree, that was bad. And you can imagine the reception, but it didn't hurt business at all. It didn't hurt business at all. As you saw some of those fans, I don't care what they say, it's not fake. It's not fake. And the stuff from Lawler and Dundee, I can tell you, I've seen street fights that didn't look near as violent as that. So in the wrestling business, when the word fake is being used, it gets, still today, it'll get me fighting mad. I hate that word for sure. Now, is there cooperation in 2024? Obviously, you can look at podcasts and see a little bit about people talk about people that sold out buildings all over the world talk about how it was done, but the word fake will never be mentioned. Also, Greg, I was going to save mentioning Miss Lily because we have a clip that Lawler interviewed her in 1983, I think, on the Jerry Lawler show, and she, I think, is the most famous fan. She was a character as well. Talk about the fans, Michael, and the people, especially in those weekly towns that were there every week. I'm giving you a lot of questions. Talk about that. Also talk about what you thought about that video and tell me if you ever saw it. And Michael goes full screen.
Well, first of all, I have seen that video before. I don't remember the entire context of the video. But one thing, and I think you're right, Randy, and it gets under my skin as well. The word fake, I mean, look up the definition of fake in the dictionary. And it's since day one that I've watched wrestling and then became a part of wrestling, I never have used the word fake. Now, are there tricks to the trade? There's tricks to every trade. There's the Oz behind the curtain. I mean, we have them in radio. We have things that we do that are illusionary, but we don't do anything fake in our business. But I don't think there's anything. I think fake people use the word fake. It's the wrong word to use. Now, is there a predetermined outcome? Do the boys work together on making something happen to make the fans more involved or to draw more money next week and so forth and so on? You can argue that point, but I don't think I've seen too many wrestlers take a spill. I saw Don Kent break his shoulder right in front of me in a ring in Birmingham, Alabama, while I was doing commentary. I've seen guys. I saw the late great Terry Gordy take a pencil and put it in his head right there, and the Sheik dropped the pencil and the pencil didn't move. It was still in his head until he got over to the side into the tag Michael Hayes, and he pulled the pencil out. And there's a gusher coming out of his head. I mean, the word fake doesn't register with me. I think it's a malproper word that people used the wrong word for. I will say this, and Randy, you said you've never seen a blood capsule used. I have only seen it used on one occasion, and everything else, I've never seen paint used. I've never seen rouge used. I've never seen any red liquid used in any type. But I was involved in one match, and I want to say it involved Ricky Morton, if I remember correctly. And they were showing a thing where he got busted, and they were trying to talk about his busted jaw. And he had slipped something in between his gum and his jaw. And when he got popped, it popped to allow him to spit blood. That's the only time I've ever seen blood used in a manner where it was predetermined as, and it wasn't a fake. It was whatever a blood capsule is, if it's food coloring and sugar water or whatever they used. But it looked for real because as soon as he took that punch to the face, he went backwards. And he hit the mat, and he became a foul, or he shot blood out of his mouth. I have never seen used. I've never seen the juice on the head. I've seen guys get busted. I've seen guys get their eyes busted to where they couldn't see. It was so bad. I've seen guys get bopped in the crown of the head, and have to take stitches after the match. So as far as the blood, quote unquote, juice in a match. Never seen fake at all. Did see a capsule used one time and it was to get a point across of a guy's punch. Never seen it used before, since.
A quick question, getting off the subject, and I want to say hello to Derek, say hello to everybody. Scott's Art is here. A lot of people. Shane Odom has a question for you, kind of getting off the subject. We'll get right back on it. So, Michael, in your opinion, who's your favorite manager?
Without a doubt, it's Saul Weingroff. back in the day, because I think he created the blueprint for what managers are all about. Of a more modern day, Jimmy Hart. There's nobody that could talk a better game than Jimmy Hart. After that, Cornette and Paulie Dangerously, or Paulie would have to be in my top 5. But without a doubt, and I will say it, and I'll take it to my grave, I think the greatest wrestling manager of all time, in my humble opinion, was Saul Weingroff. And I'll back that up.
So many in the Memphis territory. Sam Bass, of course, is one. Sir Steve Clements is another, and Dr. Ken Ramey is another.
I never got to work with Sam. I've heard all the stories about Sam, and I know he's legendary, and I know he was a great manager, but personally, I never got to work with him. Saul Weingroff, I'll never forget, on Birmingham TV one night, he was being interviewed, and the Germans were at the height of their heat, and he announced that he had just bought a home in Mountain Brook, Alabama. Well, back in that time, Mountain Brook, Alabama was the richest neighborhood probably in the South, outside of maybe New Orleans, even more so than Atlanta or Nashville. Mountain Brook was and people complained and rang that. I'll never forget hearing the story that they literally quit answering the phones at Channel 42 from people complaining that Saul Weingroff was going to be their neighbor. That's heat.
That is heat. That's a lot of heat. So I'm sure you agree with me that back in the day in 79, if you were around Jerry Jarrett, when that was released, you know how irate he would have been when that piece was aired, correct? Because they
absolutely
were using the F word, the fake word.
Right.
Absolutely.
He'd rather say fuck than fake, right? Without a doubt.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. We said something that's making my, I think that's Alexa. Alexa, turn off. She started talking all of a sudden while we were talking. Absolutely. Now, I just in a timeline perspective, was this before the shoot interview with the wrestler that showed him how to get juice on TV? Because it was around the same time.
Yes, but that was a little later. I think that was in 80 or 81 at Bo James. That's Eddie Mansfield, I think.
Eddie Mansfield, yes.
And Bo James, if he's watching the show right now, would know that. I'm not sure, but I think we're in the ballpark, and it was a couple of years later. But it's interesting, and they do a part 1. We got out of order because selfishly, I wanted to show Jonesboro and people I grew up with, and it just made me just so happy seeing the Jonesboro people, W.T. Shelton, the bell ringer, and that sort of thing. Is just cool stuff. I want you to answer one question. I knew I threw a lot of questions at you, so just one simple question, one simple answer. Was the ring secured in Alabama and in Chattanooga? Certainly in Jonesboro, there was no barriers, no fences, no ropes.
Well, there was a sort of like a rope that you'd see in line at Disney World I know in Chattanooga at the City Auditorium. A lot of several of the times I went, but it wasn't as much for the people that are there in the front row. And Randy, I'm sure you'll agree with this. The people that were in the front row at the Mid-South Coliseum and at the Women's Building at the Fairgrounds and even the City Auditorium in Birmingham were normally the people that were in the front 1, 2, 3 rows every week. It was almost like they had a season pass.
They had reserved seats. They would wait to get reserved seats. They didn't have to pay anymore. They were regulars, and they would do it. By the way, real quick, I think we missed when we were talking about managers. Certainly, a lot of people, or some people have said, Jimmy Hart, obviously, you have to throw him in the list of Memphis managers. He didn't have as good a run in WWF as, say, Jim Cornette did on WTBS, but he had more heat than Cornette did, because Cornette just in Memphis, Cornette was just starting his career.
Let me make a comment about that, because I did mention Jimmy in my litany of guys. With Saul Weingroff, and again, he's my top, but Jimmy Hart, Jimmy Cornette, and Paulie, to me, have one thing in common among all three of them. And there are other managers you can include. J.J. Dillon would include in this, Gary Hart. They were masters of the language. They had great vocabularies. They could put together sentences and put together thoughts and impede thoughts in people's minds that they would incense you. They would make you mad. They would just, But I think it was the way they used words. And even Jimmy Cornette right now on his podcast, my wife hates listening to the podcast, not because of the content, but because of the cussing. Exactly. And the other thing is the atheism.
The politics.
Yeah. The atheism more so than the politics in her case. But, you listen to Jimmy, and I listened to him last week for 3 hours. He does a fabulous job, with that podcast. Now, I'm sure if Paulie had a podcast, I'm sure if Jimmy Hart had a podcast, if God rest his soul, Saul Weingroff had a podcast, they would do just as well, because they're masters of the English language. They're masters of words. And I think that is critical in a good manager.
I think so as well. Al Tuttle sent me a thing earlier in the week, and I forwarded it to you in text message. And Al sent me some questions that he had for me that I thought we could address. And we have about 10 minutes before we have to start wrapping this show up today, Talking Memphis Wrestling. Pat didn't make it today. I guess his flight was running behind and he could not make it as well. But did you see the video I sent you of the press conference last Thursday night from a sold out arena in Las Vegas, Nevada? It was the WrestleMania deal, the piece of business between Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, The Rock, and Roman Reigns. If you did see it, your thoughts on that piece of business and that whole presentation?
The slap heard round the world. When Rock slapped him, the slap heard around the world. I mean, it was incredible. Now, I just saw the interview part. Was that part of a wrestling show in Las Vegas prior to the Super Bowl? It was just for this event, right?
Yes, and they had they set up several matches. They had like I think Becky or Sasha or some of the women wrestlers were there, but the main event and certainly was to set up the deal, because you have to, as a wrestling creative guy, if you see the people, if you discuss the people where you could run them off, you have to change. They went ahead and Cody chose Seth Rollins, and when the story has been Roman Reigns, and that made the people, since it was announced that The Rock was on the board of directors and he got $35 million and he got this and that and all kinds of stuff, all of a sudden I didn't think anybody, and Derek May is Adam's buddy, is not high on Cody Rhodes. I'm telling you, he's the most over guy there. He's loved so much. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. Because he's over so much. The people cared. They care is the word. They cared. He was being taken out of the main event spot that he won. They felt that The Rock went over his head, whatever, and they saw that every night people would yep, F Rock, F Rock, F Rock. By the way, Derek, I contacted a source and a friend of mine in the WWE, and in the year 2023, I don't know where you got the other information, and maybe for a month, the entire year, the number one merchandise seller in the WWE of 2023 was Cody Rhodes. I mean, sure. Here's another thing. At the end, the fans of AEW turned on Cody. I think that's one of the reasons Cody went back to the WWE. Here's why. They go after the Japanese wrestling fans, the smart wrestling fans, not every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Mary in the world. They go much different. They had a Japanese wrestler that came in for one shot, and Cody went over. He won, which he should have. He was one of the founding members of that company. That's the whole thing. The people turned on him, that audience. Well, screw that audience. You see, Cody goes to New York. One of the best thing I've ever seen is when he tore his quad or whatever it was, and then he took his shirt off and did that Hell in the Cell match with Seth Rollins, and you can see how gutsy of a performance, because this ain't ballet, people. I'm going to get hot here. People use a fake word and all that kind of stuff. You don't understand. These are tough, tough, tough people. And Cody got over with that audience. And on the biggest night of the year, the fans wanted to see Cody Rhodes. And where they go with it down the road, I don't know. Maybe they'll change it again, put in a tag with Cody and Seth, that sort of thing. Now, one quick question to you, and I have an answer, but Al says a lot of wrestling experts, including Eric Bischoff, a lot of different people, Bully Ray, a lot of real smart people are saying that they thought The Rock overshadowed Cody, overshadowed Seth, overshadowed Roman, made them all look like bitches. Just obviously, I do have a theory. I didn't get that watching it. I thought that setup was more like, I can't even explain. It wasn't a press conference. They were using that venue and those thousands and thousands of people to set up WrestleMania. And it was, in my eyes, it was, can you nitpick it? Sure. But I thought it was great. And you started this segment by saying the slap heard around the world. What was your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think if you're looking at the actor qualities of everybody involved, The Rock is the biggest and best actor and the biggest, the makes the most money, the most well-paid actor in Hollywood, period. And actors that know their profession are great actors. And so, if you're going to compare just who was doing what role in that video, yeah, The Rock probably overshadowed everybody. But I'm like you, Randy. I thought that was a great way of telling the story, a great way of getting people. And you're right about the social media. Just they lost their mind when it was the announced that it was going to be Roman Reigns and The Rock in the main event at WrestleMania. And you're absolutely right. To the credit of the WWE and the people that are literally running things up there, I think this was a perfect as a bridge, if you would, a bridge to get where they had announced to where they're going now. I thought that was a perfect event and a perfect bridge. And I can't poke any holes in it. I'll be honest with you. I've watched it 2 or 3 times. It would be very difficult for me to poke holes in it. I will say this. I think the low man on the totem pole out of the whole deal ended up being Seth Rollins. And I think Seth Rollins is a very, very prominent character in all this. And I think if anything, he may have gotten the short end of the stick here.
Now, Al has another comment, and his last comment, let's put it up there. And again, these are people speculating. I think this is a social media thing. I don't know where they're going. And Al said supposedly night 1 main event will be Rock and Roman against Cody and Seth, and night 2 will be Roman and Cody. And I don't think it's going to be that. Obviously, what they planned, and they went into different gear, the plan was Seth against Punk, and Punk got hurt. I don't think, what do you think of that idea, Michael? I don't like this so much, Rock and Roman against Cody and Seth. I would rather see Roman with Rock in the corner against Cody, and if they could do this, it'd be great. If Dustin Rhodes could be in the corner of Cody, but Dustin works for AEW, so that's not going to happen. But where do you think they should go?
Well, first of all, whoever's writing right now for the WWE, they deserve an Emmy, because I think it's some of the best writing that they've ever done on these events.
Better, it's some of the best writing or booking. Let me use that word.
Yeah, okay. Let's say booking
that I've ever seen. And
I
I've
agree.
seen the best in Memphis, but man, it's just just the Cody story from not just Cody's story. I don't want to make this. And Cody's not my favorite wrestler of all time by any stretch of the imagination. Probably not in my top personal 25. But I think he's the top babyface in that company. I think the people. Don't you think it's a big, big, big deal? Is Rock, as you said, is the biggest Hollywood star there is, and in this scenario, in this story, the people. Is it 100%? No, but I'd say it's 90%, if not more. They're on Cody's side. They believe in Cody. They believe in the whole story. Now, again, it goes back to the bloodline story that started 5 years ago. The road story, finished the story, it actually started when Dusty Rhodes was screwed out of the WWF title in 77. Michael, they're going to a story that started in 1977. It's going to be
Almost
your
50 years
WrestleMania
ago. Almost 50 years ago.
and
Absolutely.
it's going to be your WrestleMania main event.
Yeah.
Now that's storytelling.
Oh, absolutely. And I think and they pulled back. That's the beauty, I think. And again, giving the kudos to the bookers. The beauty is they've tied in wrestling history with wrestling current. And I think that's the beauty of the whole thing. And I think the older fans want him to do it because Dusty was denied it. And I think they want to see Dusty Rhodes' son wear the gold. I think the younger fans want Dustin or want Cody to win because of the road he's traveled, and going from WWE and then starting AEW up and then coming back and then getting their injury, having the shoulder surgery and coming out of that. And now I love the line and to me, whoever came up with this is ingenious. Cody Rhodes gets a huge pop when he comes on set, huge pop wherever he is in Lexington last night. He gets in the ring. He sheds he's overwhelmed with the emotion of how the fans are reacting to him. And he looks up and he says, well, Lexington, Kentucky. And they pop, of course. And he says, what you want to talk about? And I think that is the most clever thing. And then, what? Everybody in the whole building, everybody in the TV world knows what you're going to talk about. But what do you want to talk about? And I think he's great. I also want to give kudos. And you mentioned CM Punk a few weeks ago when the Punk and Cody confrontation on Monday Night Raw. That was incredible TV. Incredible. Wrestling or no wrestling, that was incredible TV. And I'm going to say one last thing. And let me tell you what bothers me about this Rock thing. And it almost has nothing to do with wrestling, although it has something to do with wrestling. The Rock, I get all sorts of prep services and everything. The Rock is one of the most well-recognized figures in the world, next to the Pope and two or three. Dwayne Johnson, Dewey, is up in the top hemisphere there, the top of the charts. He is people seriously take him for his political views, and a lot of America, South, North, East, West, Midwest, wherever, a lot of people see The Rock, see Dwayne Johnson as maybe the only person in America that can unify the political scenario that we have today, which it used to be Democratic Party, Republican Party. Okay, we're in a situation we need to fix the economy. We need to fix we got somebody that wants to take us out. They work together. Now, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are Alabama and Auburn, Ohio State and Michigan, and I'm giving football analogies here, the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Redskins. I mean, you pick the scenario, and they won't work together. And a lot of people in America, and I've read on both in liberal papers and in conservative papers and magazines from the New Yorker all the way down to GQ, they see Dwayne Johnson as the man that can bring America together and we can all live in a more utopian world than we are today. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I think when Dwayne steps back in the ring as a heel, I think he undermines that. And that's the part I don't like about it.
What a show today, Michael.
I talk too much. I'm sorry, Randy. I apologize.
What a show.
Thank you. And you were the guy that put it together, so you got the credit. May I bang a drum for a second, if you don't mind?
Yes.
Unfortunately, I was not on the show last week. I was I had a project that we had to accomplish in Decatur at our station there, and it was a once a year opportunity, and unfortunately it ran until 7:00 at night, and I couldn't get back to make the show. But a week ago Friday afternoon, our state senator from here in Alabama called me and said, "Hey, are you at the station?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I need to see you." Well, when the state senator, the lieutenant governor, state house, or somebody important wants to see me, I'm going to see him. So he walks in, and he's in a suit and tie, and lo and behold, he brings this document with him. I hope we can see what that says. And inside is a proclamation signed by the lieutenant governor of Alabama on the Senate floor, on the state, I call it the state house, actually in the state Senate in Montgomery, where this proclamation was read and entered into the archives and public record of the state of Alabama, that commends yours truly on his milestone of 55 years in broadcasting. And it goes on and gives a whole big scenario about my career in broadcasting. And I've had a lot of things surprise me in life, and I've had a lot of honors. God has blessed me with so many graces and so much good. But I was really taken aback by that. And I didn't know it was coming. And I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. And I had mentioned a week before that on the 29th of January, it did mark my 29th year of actually going on the radio and getting into officially into the broadcast career.
Not
when
the
I was 16 years old.
Not the 29th.
No, the January 29th was the day that was my 55th anniversary.
Okay, all right.
And then the state Senate honored me once they got back in session. So again, I apologize for beating my own horn, but I'm going to tell you, I was absolutely shocked and thrilled about that. And then I was to Lieutenant Governor Ainsworth and to Senator Kitchens. I so much appreciate that.
You deserve it more than anybody else. Team Hills is really proud of you and congratulating you. And it's
Thank you.
Oh, sometime during the week, and it is just fantastic. This is great show. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you joining us. We covered a lot, man.
You got it. Thank you, Randy. I wouldn't have anybody else on the other side of that screen than you. You are the absolute best at this. God bless you, and everybody have a great week. And thank y'all for being with us. Thank you so much for allowing me this.
Thanks for Adam Dunn. Really did a great job. Miss Pat, Miss Chris, and we thank you, Team Hills. For Michael St. John, this is Randy Hills. Good night, and see you next Monday for the Power Hour.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill and special guests.